Good morning, students. In previous class, ikite ಮುಂಚೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನಾಗ we are discussed regarding the sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ in sexual reproduction, what else we are discussed ಅಂತಂದಾಗ we are discussed regarding the events in sexual reproduction. There are the three important events in sexual reproduction. In that, one is pre-fertilization event, fertilization, and last one is post-fertilization event. So in previous class, before this class, we have discussed the first event, that is the pre-fertilization event. Pre-fertilization event in the sense what? The events of sexual reproduction which are going to take place before the fertilization, and in that we have studied two important events like gametogenesis and gamete transfer. Gametogenesis in the sense male and female gametes, whether the male and female gametes are similar to their appearance or they are different. Examples of isogametes, then heterogametes, then we have studied the anthrozoids, sperm, egg, ovum, etc. Afterwards we have studied the bisexual, unisexual, dioecious, monoecious, homothallic, etc. These are all the things we have studied in a pre-fertilization events like gametogenesis. After that we are discussed regarding the gamete transport, pollination, etc. Now in today's class we are going to start discussing regarding what? Fertilization. What is the fertilization in the sense? This is the second event after the pre-fertilization of sexual reproduction. In this, what is going to happen? In this, we are going to study the fertilization in the sense you all are, I think, familiar with the fertilization. Fertilization in the sense the fusion, F-U-S-I-O-N, fusion of male and female gamete to form, in the sense, male and female gamete. The another word used to use for the fertilization, that is the syngamy, the fusion of male and female gametes to form a diploid zygote. The fusion of male and female gamete to form a diploid zygote is called as fertilization. In the sense, fusion of male and female gamete to form a zygote, and this zygote also diploid in nature. In the sense, 2n number of chromosomes. This is very important, right? So what is the fertilization? Fertilization, it is the fusion of male and female gamete to form a diploid zygote. It is also called as fertilization, or it is called as a syngamy. Okay, now after this definition we are going to go for the types of fertilization, in the sense whether the fertilization in the sense okay, before the type of fertilization, another one thing we are going to study, in some organism the fertilization does not occur. Fertilization doesn't occur, in the sense here I written few examples like rotifers, honeybees, lizards, some lizards, birds like turkey. ಇವೇನಿಲ್ಲ ಹೆಸರು ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನಪ್ಪ ರೋಟಿಫೇರ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಹನಿವೀಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಲಿಸಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಬರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಟರ್ಕಿ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ few examples I written. What is going to happen in these organisms? The sexual reproduction is take place without fertilization. Here we are not going to observe the fertilization. Without the fertilization, the new organism is going to develop here. Understood? So for that we are going to call as a parthenogenesis. We are going to call as a parthenogenesis. Here I written the parthenogenesis. One mass question is what is the parthenogenesis? In the sense what? The female gamete undergoes the development to form a new organism. The female gamete undergoes the development to form a new organism without fertilization, or the female gamete is going to form a new organism without fertilization. The process is called as parthenogenesis. You have to write for a one mass question where if the definition asked for or define parthenogenesis in care, the female gamete undergoes development to form a new organism without fertilization. The process is called as parthenogenesis. That process is called as a parthenogenesis, right? And examples: rotifers, honeybees, lizards of some birds like turkey. These are in turkey. There is a parthenogenesis, in the sense female gamete develops, okay, to form a new organism without the fertilization. So these are the things. One, we have studied here the definition of fertilization: fusion of male and female gamete to form a diploid zygote. It is called as a fertilization of syngamy. In some organisms like rotiferans, honeybees, lizards, and birds like turkey, the female gamete undergoes development to form a new organism without fertilization. The process is called as parthenogenesis. ಆ process ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೋ parthenogenesis. Okay. Now we are going to go for study the different kinds of what we are going to call that one as a fertilizations. Different kinds of fertilizations. Okay. What are the different kinds of fertilization? In what base we are going to differentiate the types of fertilization? In the sense, we are going to go for where does the syngamy occurs. Syngamy ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಆಕೈತಿ, in the sense fertilization ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗತೈತಿ, ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವೇನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಎರಡು ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ದು ಕಲಿತೀವಿ. ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ and another one is internal fertilization. Okay, in external fertilization, the fertilization it is take place outside the body of an organism. Easy the definition. ಏನು ಈಸಿ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಇದೇನೋ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫಿಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಬಾಡಿ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಆಕೈತಿ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ದ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್. ಸೊ ಔಟ್ಸೈಡ್ ದಿ body of an organism is called as external fertilization. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಏನು? ಅಲ್ಗೆ, ಫಿಶಸ್, ಆಂಫಿಬಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಟ್ರಾ. ಈ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಹೆಂಗಾಗ್ತೈತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಇವತ್ರದ್ದು ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಎಗ್ಸ್, ನಾವೇನು ಮೇಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮತ್ತು ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಅವು ಎರಡೂ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದಾಗ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೇರ್ ದ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್. ಈಗ ಈ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ದಾಗ ಏನು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತೈತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಶೋಸ್ ಅ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಸಿಂಕ್ರಾನಿ. ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಸಿಂಕ್ರಾನಿ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಎಗ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಮ್ಯಾಚುರೇಷನ್ ಆಗೋದಾಗ್ಬೋದಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಅಥವಾ ಎಗ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗೋದಾಗ್ಬೋದಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಅದು ಅಟ್ ಎ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಆನಂತರ ದೇ ಈಸ್ ಟು ರಿಲೀಸ್ ದ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್. ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಎಗ್ಗು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ನಂಬರ್ದಾಗ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವೆ, ಸ್ಪರ್ಮು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ನಂಬರ್ದಾಗ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವೆ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇವೇನಾಗ್ತಾವಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕಮ್ ಇನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ವಿತ್ ದ ಪ್ರಿಡೇಟರ್ಸ್ ತಂದಾಗ ಆ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಎಗ್ ತಿನ್ನುವಂಥವು ಪ್ರಿಡೇಟರ್ಸ್ ಭಾಳಷ್ಟು ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ವಾಟರ್ದಾಗ. ದ್ಯಾಟ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಟು ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ದಿ ಅಚೀವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಿಂಗ್ಯಾಮಿ. ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಮಾಡೋ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಅವೇನಾಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ ತಂದಾಗ ಭಾಳಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಮಾಣದಾಗ ಏನಾಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾವೆ. ಓಕೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ one disadvantage is there. What is the disadvantage of external fertilization? The care one mass question knowledge based care andre here what is going to happen, there is a possibility of survival up to the adulthood is very less. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಒಂದು ಎಗ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ, ಆನಂತರ ಅವು ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆನಂತರ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಡಲ್ಟ್ ಆಗೋ ಮಸ್ತ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನು ಸರ್ವೈವಲ್ನೆಸ್ ಐತಿ ಅದು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಡಿಸ್ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್? ಪಾಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಸರ್ವೈವಲ್ ಅಪ್ ಟು ಅಡಲ್ಟ್ಹುಡ್ ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಲೆಸ್. ಇನ್ ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಟು ದಿ external fertilization, there is a second type of fertilization, that is the internal fertilization. In the sense, the syngamy take place inside the body of an organism is called as internal fertilization. Example: fungi, reptiles, birds, mammals, etc. And in some plants also the internal fertilization is to take place, like bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms, etc. Right. So internal fertilization ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ the fertilization take place inside the body of an organism is called as internal fertilization. Okay. When we are going to study the internal fertilization, that time we are going to go for studying the two types of what we are going to call that one as a gametes. And the fertilization in internal fertilization, the fertilization take place within the female organism's body. Like female organism's body. Okay, now here what is going to happen, the male gamete is motile and the sperms are produced in a large number of amount. In internal fertilization, when we compare to the egg, the sperms are produced in a large number. And in case of plants, like in internal fertilization, the plant in the male gamete are carried in the plants. What is going to happen, male gametes are carried to the female gametes by the pollen tube. ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ sexual reproduction in flowering plant ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಇದನ್ನ ಕಲಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. What is that? In plants, how the reproduction is take place, internal reproduction, the male gametes are carried to the female gamete by pollen tube. This is very important. Okay, so still for so far we are discussed regarding fertilization, the definition of fertilization in the sense the fusion of male and female gametes to form a haploid zygote. It is called as a syngamy or a fertilization. In some organisms like rotiferans, honeybees, lizards, of some birds like turkey, the fertilization in the sense the development of a organism by the female gamete without fertilization, that is we are going to call as a parthenogenesis. Definition in here, the female gamete undergoes the development to form a new organism without fertilization. Without fertilization new organism agtೈತಿ ಇದರಿಂದ female gamete ದಿಂದ, that process is called as a parthenogenesis. Understood? Now based upon where does the syngamy occurs, fertilization ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಆಕೈತಿ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಎರಡು ಟೈಪ್ ಅದಾವ. one is external fertilization, another one is internal fertilization. External fertilization ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ fusion of male and female gamete take place outside the body of an organism. Internal fertilization ಅಂತಂದಾಗ the fusion of male and female gametes or a syngamy is take place inside the body of an organism. ಇದರ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ, algae, fishes, amphibians ಅದು ಬರೀಬೋದು ನೀವು. ಇದರ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ higher organisms. And what is the disadvantage of external fertilization? Possibility of survival of up to the adulthood is less. Why at the knowledge based question ಕೇರ್ತಂದಾಗ, because they are directly come in contact, means whatever the gametes are there, they are directly come in contact with the, we are going to call that one as a predators. ಅದನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬುಕ್ನಾಗ ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನು ಬರ್ದಿದಾರಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ, ಡಿಸ್ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಯಾಕಂತಂದಾಗ the offsprings are vulnerable to the predators, threatening their survival up to the adulthood. In the sense they are extremely vulnerable to the predators. In the sense ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿರ್ತೈತೆ ಅವು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಿಡೇಟರ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಬರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರ ಪಾಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಸರ್ವೈವಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ ಉಳಿಯೋದು, ಅಡಲ್ಟ್ಹುಡ್ ತನಕ ಉಳಿಯೋದು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್. ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಹೇಳಿ, ಅನದರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ reptiles, birds, mammals, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ನಾಗ ಬಂದರೆ ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟ್, ಟೆರಿಡೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್, ಜಿಮ್ನೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್, ಆಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಕೈತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್ ಮೊಟೈಲ್ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ. ಆನಂತರ ಏನು ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ಭಾಳ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ನಂಬರ್ದಾಗ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ತಾವೆ, ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ನಂಬರ್. ಅನಂತರ ಇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ನಾಗ ನೀವು ಹೋದ್ರೆ ತಂದು, ಇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿಡ್ ಟು ದ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ ಬೈ pollen tube. These are the things in the sense fertilization definition, parthenogenesis definition important ಐತಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ fertilization definition important ಐತಿ. ಆನಂತರ external fertilization, differentiate between the external fertilization and internal fertilization. What is the disadvantage of external fertilization? These all the things are like this. The questions are going to arise on the concept. What is that? Fertilization, or we are going to call this one as the second event of fertilization. Now we are going to study the next event, that is what we are going to call that one as a post fertilization event. We are going to study the post fertilization event. Now in post fertilization event, you all are studied the what pre-fertilization events, then we have studied the fertilization. Now we are going to go for the study of post fertilization events. Here in post-fertilization events, the events of a sexual reproduction which take place after the fertilization are called as post-fertilization events. Post-fertilization events atandagene the events which are going to take place after the fertilization. After the fertilization. The events which are going to take place after the fertilization are called as post-fertilization events. In the sense, after fertilization, one is zygote is going to form, that is diploid in nature, and the zygote develops whatever the zygote is going to form. In the sense, this is also an event of post-fertilization event. Post-fertilization event ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಏನೇನು ಆಕೈತಲ್ಲ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಇವೆಂಟ್. ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಏನಾಕೈತಿ ತಿಳಿದೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ? ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಝೈಗೋಟ್. ಈ ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಹೆಂಗಿರ್ತೈತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ, ಇನ್ ಸಮ್ ಝೈಗೋಟ್ the zygotes are develops what we are going to call that one as a thick wall. They are going to develop the thick wall. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಝೈಗೋಟ್ನಾಗ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಿ thick wall ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ ಟು ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ಡೆಸಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡ್ಯಾಮೇಜ್ ಆಗಬಾರ್ದು ಅಥವಾ ಡೆಸಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆಗಬಾರದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಥಿಕ್ ವಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಸಮ್ ಹೆಪ್ಲಾಂಟಿಕ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಹೆಪ್ಲಾಂಟಿಕ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ನೀವು ಪ್ರಿವಿಯಸ್ ಇಯರ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ದಾಗ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಿ. ಹೆಪ್ಲಾಂಟಿಕ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ದಾಗ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಡಿವೈಡ್ಸ್ ಬೈ ಮಿಯಾಸಿಸ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಎ ಹೆಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್. ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಡಿವೈಡ್ಸ್ ಇಂಟು ದಿ ಹೆಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್. ಆ ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಏನು ಹೆಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಅನಂತರ that grow into the haploid individual. ಆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೋರ್ದಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಹೊಸ ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ತಯಾರಾಗ್ತಿರ್ತೈತಿ. ಓಕೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಕಾಲ್ ದಟ್ ಒನ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ what in case of haplontic life cycle. Okay, now next we are going to go for a importance of zygote. What is the zygote? The zygote, it is a vital link, not like this is a link where I came. Zygote, it is a vital link for the continuity of species between the organisms of one generation to the next generation. One generation to the next generation. What is the importance of zygote is the zygote it is the vital link for the continuity of species between the organism of one generation to the next generation. One generation is the maton generation species continuity agabekatandre zygote formation is very important, right? This is about what zygote. After the in a post fertilization events, what is going to happen in post fertilization event? The zygote is going to form. The zygote is diploid in nature, and in some zygote it is going to develop the thick wall to resist the desiccation and damage. And in haplontic life cycle, the zygote undergoes the meiosis to form a haploid spores, and those are grow into the haploid individuals. What is the importance of zygote? It is the vital link between the continuity of species between organisms of one generation to the next generation. After that, in a post-fertilization event, we are going to go for studying embryogenesis. Embryogenesis in the sense the process of formation of embryo from the zygote. The process of development of embryo from the zygote, it is called as a embryogenesis. Now, what are the events are going to take place in a embryogenesis? This is very important. In embryogenesis, what is going to happen? These two things are going to happen. One is cell division and cell differentiation. Idu in previous year ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ನ ಕೇಳಿದಾರೆ. This is important. What is important? What main events are going to take place in embryogenesis? That is, zygote undergoes the cell division and cell differentiation. What is the importance of cell division? Cell division, it is going to increase the number of cell. Here I written NO of cell. And cell differentiation in the sense it helps to form a specialized tissue and organs to form a organism. In the sense, cell differentiation in the sense after the cell division, increase in a number of cells, The cell differentiation in the sense the cells are going to go for specialized formation of specialized tissue, and those specialized tissue are going to form organs and the organ system, and it is going to develop the organism. These things we have discussed last year: cell, tissue, then organ system, then organism is going to form. Okay, so this is the important in the sense of main two things are going to take place in embryogenesis, in the sense the zygote undergoes the cell division and cell differentiation. And here see, I given you the homework that is regarding what? Oviparous and oviparous. Here what is going to happen? There are some organisms, they used to lay the fertilized or unfertilized eggs. Those are called as the oviparous organisms. Viviparous organisms, in the sense they give birth to the young ones. They are going to give birth directly to the young ones. That is what we are going to call that as a viviparous organism. In oviparous organism, you have to find out the examples. You are going to find out the examples for the viviparous organism. Okay, oviparous and viviparous organisms. In oviparous and oviparous organism, for example, viviparous organisms like what? Reptiles and birds. In oviparous, if you are going to go for studying the examples of reptiles and birds, they are going to lay the egg, fertilized eggs, which are covered by the calcareous cells, Viviparous in the sense they are going to give birth to the young ones directly. Okay, this is about what differentiate between the oviparous and viviparous organisms. Oviparous andre the organisms which are going to lay fertilized or unfertilized egg. Viviparous in the sense they give birth to the young ones. Gurtaita? So these are the things. I think you are done the homework question. Okay, in previous class I given na ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ previous class ನಾಗ oviparous ಮತ್ತು viviparous definition ಬರೋದು ಅದರ examples ಬರೀರಿ, because first year ದಾಗ ನಾವು ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ. Okay, now when we are going to discuss about these things in a flowering plant, the zygote in some flowering plant, the zygote is going to form inside the ovule. After the fertilization, what is going to happen in previous years? Last year ನಾವೇನು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದು ತಂದಾಗ, in previous year what we have studied regarding morphology of flowering plant. Okay, ನಾವೇನು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ morphology of flowering plant. In morphology of flowering plant, what we have studied? Accessory organs and reproductive organs. Accessory organs ಅಂದ್ರೆ sepals ಮತ್ತು petals. Reproductive organs androecium and gynoecium. Androecium ಕನ್ನ ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಹೆಸರು ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಸ್ಟಾಮಿನಾ, gynoecium ಕ pistil. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಫರ್ಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಸೆಪಲ್ಸ್, ಪೆಟಲ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಟೆಮೆನ್ ದೇ ಇಸ್ ಟು ಫಾಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ pistil remains attached. And afterwards the zygote is going to form the embryo, ovule is going to form the seed, ovary is going to form a fruit, and surrounding the fruit we are going to form the thick wall of a fruit is called as a pericarp. One mass question ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, what is pericarp ಅಂತ. So these are the things we are going to study in a flowering plant. What is going to happen? The zygote is formed inside the ovule, and after fertilization what is going to happen? Sepals, petals and stamens are going to fall off and pistil remains attached to the flower plant. Then the zygote is developed into the embryo, ovules are developed into seed, ovary is developed into the fruit. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಮಾಸ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. zygote is developed into the embryo, ovules are developed into seed, ovary is developed into fruit. So these are the things. Define oviparous, viviparous, give an example for the oviparous, viviparous. Then what are the important events that take place in embryogenesis, in the sense cell division and cell differentiation. What is the importance of cell division? It increases the number of cells. What is the importance of cell differentiation atandaga? It helps to form a specialized tissue and organs to form an organism. This is the thing. What is the definition of embryogenesis? One mass ಕೇಳಿದರು. 2 mass question ಏನು ಕೇಳಿದಾರೆ? Define embryogenesis and mention the important events which are take place in embryogenesis. 3 mass question ಕೇಳಿದರು. So take down the question atandaga, what is embryogenesis and mention the important events which are take place in a embryogenesis. ಈ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕನ್ಸರ್ ಏನು ಬರೀತೀರಿ ನೀವು? ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು? ದ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿ ಝೈಗೋಟ್. ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋದಿಂದ ಅಂದರೆ ಝೈಗೋಟ್ದಿಂದ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಆಗುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕ್ರಿಯೆಗೆ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ? ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್. ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ದಾಗ ಯಾವ ಎರಡು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇವೆಂಟ್ ಆಗ್ತವೆ? ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಡಿವಿಷನ್, another one is cell differentiation. Then we are studied in a post fertilization event ದಾಗ ಏನು ಕಲ್ತು ನಾವು? ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿ ನಿಮಗೆ? ಇಲ್ಲಿ zygote ಅಂದ್ರೆ it is a diploid in nature, and zygote develop, and some zygotes are going to develop the thick wall to resist the desiccation and damage. Then in haplontic life cycle, the zygote divides by the meiosis to form a haploid spores that grow into the haploid individuals. Importance of zygote atanda, it is a vital link between the continuity of species between the organisms of one generation to the next generation. And here we are discussed the post fertilization events atandaga, the events of sexual reproduction which take place after the fertilization. Okay, so these are the things, and this is going to complete the first chapter regarding what the reproduction in organism. So in brief, what else we are discussed? In the reproduction, the definition of reproduction, types of reproduction, asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction. Again, what are the types are there? Then examples, vegetative reproduction, then sexual reproduction again, events of sexual reproduction and all is all the things we have studied. So now you used to go through the exercise which are given in your book. In the sense, exercise na ಏನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾರ ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. In exercise they are given why is the reproduction is essential for the organism. You try to write the answer for it. Which is the better mode of reproduction, sexual or asexual, and why? Okay, then why is the offsprings formed by the asexual reproduction referred as a clone? Because they are similar to each other ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೇನಿದೆ. So go through these whatever the questions which are given in your exercise. Okay, first chapter, and here see explain the meiosis and gametogenesis are always interlinked. These things you has to try, and I given homework: juvenile phase, reproductive phase, sensate phase. Then identify each part of the flowering plant that write whether it is haploid or diploid, whether the ovary is haploid or diploid, anther, egg, pollen, male gamete, zygote. You go through this first, and while discussing the what we are going to call that one as a Google Meet, or else I will put the answer. ಅಂದರೆ ಇದು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಇವತ್ತು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬೇಕಾದರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಡೌಟ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಕೇಳಿ ಆ ಥರ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ನಾವೇನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ವೆನ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ in a Google Meet. Another one thing is, now you are going to start searching the question papers. Earlier question paper ತೆಗೆಯೋದು ಸಿಕ್ಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅದ್ರಾಗ ಯಾವ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಬಂದ ನೋಡ್ರಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ first chapter, reproduction in organism. What is that? Reproduction in organism. ಇದೊಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಅಂತೂ ನಾ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿ ನೀವು. What is embryogenesis? Mention the events of embryogenesis. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಯಾವುದೋ ಇಯರ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ನಾಗ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? The process of development of embryo from a zygote. It is called as embryogenesis. And the events ಅತಂದಾಗ one is cell division ಮತ್ತು cell differentiation. ಅನಂತರ oviparous viviparous differentiate between the oviparous viviparous ಬರ್ಬೋದು. Then the zygote is developed into embryo, ovule is developed into seed, ovary is developed into fruit. And sometimes the question is asked, defined pericarp. Pericarp ಅಂದರೆ ಏನಂತ ಅಂದ್ವಿ ಕೇಳಿದರು. So these are the things. Okay, once again I am going to go slowly, clear cut, so you can take the notes regarding these things. External fertilization, Okay. Post fertilization events: zygote, diploid zygote. Important zygote are vital link ಹೇಳಿದೆ. Embryogenesis, cell division, cell differentiation, oviparous, viviparous. Very good. Thank you.